Next up in the Heat Check Scouting Report series is Washington State's Cedric Coward, one of the top pre-draft process risers over the last month. Coward's basketball story is a great one, with him having worked his way from Division III basketball to 2 seasons with Eastern Washington, and finally a short-lived season with Washington State that started out productive, but saw him play just 6 games due to a season-ending labrum tear. The injury isn't expected to have any sort of long-term effects, but certainly limits the film and information here for both us and NBA decision makers. Just a disclaimer, having only played 6 games, I'll be using a mix of both his film and stats from Eastern Washington and Washington State. Coward is on the older side generally, but young-ish for a senior, turning 22 just a few months after draft night. Here's how Heat Check works. I'm going to pick a draft prospect and grade them on the most generally important skills and aspects of their game: athleticism, scoring, defense, passing, and playmaking, as well as feel for the game. After those 5, I'll touch on one more skill relative to that prospect that I think is going to have the most impact on their draft stock. That will be deemed the swing skill. Each skill will be graded 1 through 5 on the Heat Check chart, the lowest being freezing and the highest scorching. When it's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final score. Starting with Cedric Coward's athleticism, I've gone with hot. He's a fine athlete with truly elite physical tools, which has done a lot of the legwork in seeing his pre-draft stock skyrocket. It's blown wide open with his combine measurements, standing at 6'5" without shoes with a +8 7'2" wingspan, doing solidly in agility, leaping, and shooting drills too. Coward's pure verticality is fine, with him able to leap off one or both feet in transition, or some space standing in the lane, though he's not going to blow socks off in this area. Where he thrives is with his more fluid, glidey movement. When mixed with his rangy wingspan, it allows him to cover a ton of ground on both sides of the ball, although he's not especially twitchy. All in all, with an NBA-ready frame and find a good athleticism, Coward should be one of the more seamless NBA translators in this area. For Cedric Coward's scoring, I've gone with warm. He's proven himself NBA ready in a few areas, but still has a ways to go in refining his overall scoring game, and likely projects to be a gap filler at his best. For Coward's upcoming scoring stats, I've used his junior season at Eastern Washington, given it was his most recent bigger sample. Across those 32 games, he averaged 15.4 points, doing so on a great 57% shooting overall, 38% from 3 on over 4 attempts, and 90% from the line. Coward has a funky concoction of skills for a wing, especially one his size, seeing proven shooting across a few seasons with Eastern Washington, the athletic tools as we covered to thrive in transition and other at-rim situations, and the kicker being his post-up game, not something too many of his archetype have in their bag. Across his collegiate career, he saw a pretty decent blend of jump shooting and at-rim scoring, seeing 49% of his points off field goals at the rim in his junior season, opposed to 40% on jumpers. But he saw a more perimeter-oriented start with Washington State. The most replicable key for Coward is his 3-point shooting, which feels pretty translatable to the next level. Across 72 total games, he took 196 total triples, hitting on 76 of those for a 39% clip. His form is far from perfect, but certainly easy enough to bet on, having mitigated some of the dip and speeding it up plenty through his college career. But his at-rim scoring in various ways to get there can be a weapon too. He shot a blistering 76% at the rim in total as a junior, a solid 73% on layups, pointing to great touch, mostly getting there via post-ups, in transition, and more seldom cutting or as the pick-and-roll handler. Per synergy, he ranked excellent posting up, in transition, and cutting as a junior, likely due to his immense length, touch around the ring, and feel for general space in both the full and half court. Coward's post-up game could be a legitimate weapon too. With mismatches, he's able to garner position with immovability, eventually seeing the ball through with decent footwork and those really long arms. While he obviously won't see the same volume at the NBA level, he'll still be able to take advantage of mismatches when offered. It's fairly clear that Coward does role-player things well: shooting, scoring efficiently inside, and that fun little dash of post-up prowess. But the catch here is that there's little flexibility or bend right now in his offensive game. It seemed like he was trending towards that in his games with the Cougars, but was obviously stopped short. The primary hangup is his pretty lackluster handle, which right now just doesn't allow for a ton of added creativity towards Coward's offensive game. While it's fine in transition and on straight line dribble driving, it's fairly limited outside of that. And with such a rangy frame, he can feel somewhat disconnected with the ball in hands at times, though there's these flashes where it feels like he could put it all together. Overall, Coward has a nice baseline scoring game, and when mixed with his athletic tools, it's easy to see him blending into NBA offenses eventually. While I'm a bit lower on his scoring ceiling, it's certainly something to watch out for considering his late collegiate bloom. For Cedric Coward's defense, I've gone with hot. This is a future projection, as he's not currently good or consistent enough to warrant a hot grade, but I feel confident enough in his tools and growth to bet on his defensive upside. Coward's size here is the obvious plus on this end. His 7'2" wingspan essentially makes him forward-sized, but his decent agility can help him putter around like a guard on the perimeter. He can shuffle his feet, cover so much ground, and swallow up plays as a whole. In his last 38 collegiate games, he racked up 37 steals and 40 blocks apiece, good for 1 and 1.1 per game. While the pure defensive playmaking has generally been a plus, his overall plus impact has been inconsistent, seeing low defensive box plus minuses in each season, and shockingly a negative DBPM in his junior season, though his career 3.7 block percentage is a great number. Coward's currently at his best off the ball, using his ranginess to blow things up or offer help. He can clog lanes, block shots, and just generally wreak some havoc. His attentiveness and awareness aren't S tier, but certainly gets him by given his tools. In this clip, Coward essentially has one foot in the paint, ready to add some weak side additive. Instead, he closes out insanely fast, reacts well, and manages to get a big hand on the three-point shot. That's a glimpse of what he could offer teams on the wing, though these flashes can be few and far between right now. Overall, Coward isn't yet a consistently good defender, but certainly has the tools to get there. We'll touch more on Cedric Coward's on-ball defense later in the video, but it's likely one of the bigger singular skills in this draft. For Cedric Coward's passing and playmaking, I've gone with cool. While I think he'll ultimately be a wash to slightly positive for his role in the NBA, I don't see major passing playmaking contributions in his future. Coward's passing playmaking is one of the harder sub-evaluations in his general profile. Across his 6 games with Washington State, he averaged 3.7 assists to 2.2 turnovers, quite a big boost compared to his 1.8 and 1.7 per game in his previous 2 seasons. Additionally, he had a 2.1 assist to turnover ratio as a sophomore, but was in the negative as a junior. For his career, he averaged a 13.5 assist percentage to a 16 turnover percentage, which isn't a great point towards more on-ball work. Suffice it to say, his passing numbers have been all over the place, especially given the best and most recent sample is just 6 games. So the eye test is especially important for Coward, and truthfully, I'm not blown away by most of the tape either. There's some flashes of great stuff, but he generally doesn't seem to be an especially fast reader of the game, instead needing an extra beat or a little more time to do more than ball move. I think Coward has consistently great intentions, which is a great thing for a role player and is often capable of good stuff, but right now just doesn't have the processing speed to make him quote-unquote connective. Ultimately, this doesn't dock Coward a ton of overall points in my personal book, but I'm not sure it's indicative of star power either. I land pretty firmly in the middle on Cedric Coward's unquantifiable feel for the game. On the positive side, Coward's seen a meteoric rise through college basketball, not done without decent feel. Starting in Division III, producing greatly at Eastern Washington, and starting to do so at Washington State too, before committing to Duke of all places. On the other side, there's still a few roadblocks in the way of true feel, processing speed, bodily connectedness, a handle that can't quite offer him creativity, and a little bit more, despite him mostly trying to do good things. The hope is that you draft Coward for his high floor role player traits, shooting, potentially sound defense, athleticism, but that some late blooming, unforeseen feel for the game carries him further than that down the road. As I've already stated, I think Coward has a potentially high ceiling defensive outlook, but we haven't touched on the most polarizing aspect of that yet, his on-ball defense. In theory, a 6'5" fluid moving wing with a 7'2" wingspan should be a defensive stopper. If you look across the league at close to these measurements, you'll see Draymond Green, Mikal Bridges, Bilal Coulibaly, Jalen Williams, OG Anunoby, Tari Eason, legit defenders. But Coward doesn't yet have the prowess to project him to be in the same tier as these guys. As we touched on, Coward's fairly coordinated and fluid, but there's also these moments of disconnectedness, and while he can be a smooth mover, he's just not great laterally, meaning sticking to players on ball can be tough. There's these flashes when he slides, stops, flips the hips, and forces talented players to cough it up, but it's just not yet consistent enough. One plus is that his ridiculous length affords him some grace in this area, especially in recovery where he can be pretty solid. There's essentially two schools of thought here. Coward's a still improving late blooming player who stands to shore up a ton of his game, including this area, or that Coward's a soon to be 22-year-old who, despite fitting in snugly to the NBA tools wise, might not be destined for crazy impact or upside. I myself land somewhere in the middle, projecting Coward to get better, but probably not to an all defensive type beat. And being a defensive stopper isn't a must. Even if Coward is good off ball and fine on ball opposed to great, that can still be a really good player. But you see the impact of the McHales and the OGs of the world blossom so high with elite defensive output. The grade. I've gone with a grade of 7.6 for Cedric Coward. While his potential rise to the lottery is certainly warranted, I'm somewhat skeptical of immensely high upside, but rather really good role player impact. Coward's baseline of size, length, shooting ability, and defensive potential makes him a pretty worthy gamble. He's kind of the inverse of most of these lengthy project wings in that he's already got that shooting built in, with the addition of some decent at-rim scoring and fine feel for the game. For any teams in the late lottery or middle of the first round that need his blend of skills, which is essentially all of them, I'm fully okay with taking a chance on Cedric Coward, though he may need just a year or two to bake. That's it for this one. Let me know what you think of Cedric Coward, what you grade him, where you draft him, drop who you want to see in the next heat check. We are running out of time to the 2025 NBA draft, and we'll see you next time.